Now, I'm doing a new show called New Hollywood Stars, kind of an American Idol for actors. And it reminded me of one day, way back, sitting next to your dad on the anchor desk at NBC. And Nick said, hey, David, my boy is trying to break into this whole acting world here in Hollywood. You got any pointers for him? And I gave him some ideas, agents and stuff. And it occurred to me, what was the toughest part for you breaking into the acting business?
Sleeping with all the casting directors, I suppose. That's if there's advice, you know, really don't only sleep with the top casting directors, not the assistants ever. It was different then, I suppose. You know, we were doing a lot of equity waiver theater in Los Angeles, which was ultimately probably the showcase to get an agent and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I suppose the hardest part was, you know, understanding that when you went in on an audition that people weren't out to hate you. You know, when everybody who goes in an audition just thinks, oh, they're going to hate me or they're not going to like me, and they don't really realize that every time someone, if I'm casting a film, I'm praying that the next guy that comes in the door will solve all my problems. You know? And so you have to think about it as you're the person who's coming in to solve the problems. And
they're rooting for you.
Yeah, and I don't think actors very often think that way. I think mostly they think, God, I hope they like me. And I think you have to think differently.
What was the toughest thing about breaking into show business for you?
You know, fortunately, I started for fun, right? And it's one of those weird, I know I'm about to sound like some crazy Zen in the art of archery, but the idea of breaking into show business is kind of the wrong idea. Right? The first thing is to be great, right? And if you are great, then you don't have to break into show business. You just have to be prepared. And, you know, my father used to say, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? So the only thing, you can't control opportunity, right? All you can control is the preparation part. So be prepared and put yourself in the right position, and don't worry about breaking into show business. It's like lightning striking. You know, so you can't really say when the lightning is going to strike, but if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
That's right. What was your first break?
My first break, I really started with the music. And I would say if it was something singularly that broke me, was how different my music videos were from everything else that existed. Like, my videos stood out on MTV. You know, it was something that was completely different. I was doing my own thing, and like it or hate it, it was distinctly different, and it was memorable because it was my perspective.
How much did you have to hustle to get where you are today?
I think it was a serious, my hustle was great. Because like in 89, 90, 91, when stand-up comedy was like really stand-up comedy, there was no television there to kind of like put everything on television, there was no reality. So my hustle was great because as I was doing stand-up in Los Angeles, some of the people I would be, if I'm Mike Tyson, heavyweight boxing champion, look out at Mike Tyson's there, there he is. So I'd be like, oh, you know. So I had a great time in Los Angeles, kind of becoming that LA star that nobody knew about as far as, you know, television was concerned. And then it wasn't until I got on In Living Color that things, you know, started to happen for me. But it was a great hustle, you know. It was LA was hot at that time.
Did you used to get nervous when you were auditioning at the beginning?
I learned a way to audition. I would learn whatever I'm going to go in and read. I would learn it like I knew the Pledge of Allegiance, so that when I came in, it was completely. They would see me as the character and not having to, you know, that thing. And so that way you could kind of toy with the character a little better.
But back in the very beginning, when you had to audition, you had to convince people you were good. How did you go through that? How did you overcome some of the nervousness and insecurity that a performer always has?
I tried to use it, you know, like when I had to audition for this movie.
You did?
I did. I did a screen test. They thought I was too much of a celebrity for people to believe me as young Dina. And I used my nervousness, you know, all of that anxiety and all of that, you know, insecurity, I used it. And I just had to let go and put in the work and just trust that it was gonna be right.
To the newcomer who has to go through all this auditioning, being a contestant and all this stuff, what's your advice? How do you get through it without being completely destroyed by nervousness?
Focus in on that character, become that character. Don't set yourself aside, you know? I mean, I was Effie for 6 months, not Jennifer, you know, and that's what was going on with Effie. I was living in and walking in her footsteps, and become that character.
What kind of advice would you have for young people trying to break into the movie business today?
You know, I think it's just to really just follow your dreams, and you know, there's so many people that help you along the way, and never forget those people. And you know, it's not just yourself that does it. It's you really owe it to so many other people, and that's what I always think.
When you were a little girl, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I've been acting since I was a little girl, so I've always wanted to be an actress.
So did you really want to do that when you were just as little as you can remember?
Yeah, well, I started acting when I was 6, and my mom kind of saw that I loved to act since I was very young. So I do believe that it was something that I've always wanted to do since all I can remember, like you said.
How do you deal with the nervousness and kind of anxiety when you go in to read for a new part? Or go back to when you really first started, when you had to audition for everything you did.
I never really was nervous when I would do that. I just, you know, was excited, and, you know, there was a lot of times I didn't get things, and it just wasn't the right thing.